People often ask me what an average day was like in prison, but that was kind of hard to answer because different prisons had different rules and different setups, and I had a different mindset at different places. So when I first got locked up, I was in the jail for about 9 months. So in the jail, you don't go anywhere, you don't do anything. I was in the little block, which had cells attached to it, and we didn't leave, we didn't go anywhere. It was just there 24/7. And, that's kind of a difficult thing to explain what I did. I slept a lot, I was really depressed. I had started doing some college classes there, so I would do that as a productive activity. We'd play cards, we would work out, but basically we were just kind of hibernating. We were waiting for life to go by and, as quickly as possible. So when I got to the first prison, it was a 23-in-1 lockdown at receiving. So 23 hours a day, maybe a little bit less because technically we went to chow and we went out. But yeah, we were just stuck in the cell all day. It's the same thing. I read a lot, I slept a lot. I kind of wasted a lot of times or played cards with my roommate. When I got to Nottoway, it was a level 4, and they were set up to say you were supposed to have 8 hours out of the cell every day, but in many cases you only had 6. So unless you were going to rec in the morning or going to work, the cell didn't open until 12:30. So you would go to chow and come right back in and go in. Or if you went to work, you would go to work and then come back, and you weren't even allowed to take a shower. You had to go lock back in the cell until 12:30. So I tended to sleep in a lot. I would sleep in, I would lay around, I would read, I would watch TV late into the night because I was, felt like I didn't have anything else to do. But I would work out every time we went outside. I was still doing my college stuff. I was writing. I would go out in the pod and play cards sometimes, but I was still really kind of reserved at that point. So basically, I had this solitary thing where I would read alone in my cell or watch TV alone in my cell. I would go outside and work out alone, or I would, kind of be wandering around or doing the daily things that I did. Now, when I went to Buckingham, which was 4 years later, it was a huge difference because we were out of the cell from 6:30 in the morning until 11:30 at night. We'd have to lock back in for count and then come right back out. And it was different because all of a sudden I realized I had some options. So I first got there and I was going outside twice a day. I was going out in the morning and lifting weights. I was going out in the afternoon and I was playing soccer or I was running or I was doing something else. And I had a job that was really flexible. So I was the pod pal, which meant I was the kind of pod tutor. I was there to help people study for GED stuff. I was helping, guys that couldn't read. I was going to read letters to them or help them write letters or help them write, forms or whatever they had to do for the prison. And so I had a really flexible schedule. Some days I'd work 5 or 6 hours. Other days I wouldn't work any, but I could work around my schedule. If a guy would say, hey, I need help, I'd say, all right, well, look, I'll get with you at 12 o'clock or I'll get with you at 2 o'clock or I'll get with you at 9 in the morning, whatever. And it allowed me to really kind of have this schedule, but all I was doing was working out and reading and doing college stuff. I wasn't doing any kind of volunteering. I wasn't thinking about any but myself. I was still in this kind of selfish mode. I was trying to better myself, but I wasn't really thinking about the people around me. And that took this kind of gradual process. So by the time I left Buckingham, rather than just that purely selfish thing, I was getting up in the morning and I was going to work, and I was working most all day, but figuring out a way. We had a really cool boss, so I could get outside, and so I would get out to rec. But I was teaching classes, I was teaching Spanish, I was teaching yoga, I was teaching nonviolent communication, I was teaching some of the DBT stuff. I created a program on accountability that I was teaching. So I was busy all day long. I would teach those classes in the afternoon or the evening, and the other evenings I would go to program or I would go to class. I would do something that was allowing me to kind of connect with other people because I realized I had lived this very solitary existence, and that's what I did most of my prison time, right? I thought, okay, well, I want to do my own time, I want to stay away from people, I want to stay away from drama, and that makes sense, but I realized I couldn't be a part of a community unless I invested in it. It's not that that's necessarily the community that I would choose, but if I'm going to be in an environment, I want to better that environment. I want to better myself, and I can't better myself without bettering that environment and vice versa. So when I realized that I could invest in that community, it changed my life, and my life became this daily, full, meaningful thing. It wasn't that I was happy to be in prison, but as much as anybody in the world, I felt like I was happy. I had a meaningful life, and I enjoyed it. Then when COVID hit, most all that stuff shut down. So I had 2 things that were really lucky. One, that I had a job that they needed. I was on maintenance, and the whole prison runs on prisoner maintenance, so they can't just not have us go to work. So they would come in and get us, we would still go to work, we would still do all the low voltage stuff, we would even do some electrical stuff. And so I had a job that I could do, but I wasn't able to go into other pods to teach because of the COVID regulations. Nobody was able to go from pod to pod. We were all just separated. But I got really lucky because the head psychologist there was the head of a video education program. So DOC's answer was, okay, well, if we can't have programs or we can't have people meet in person, we're going to do educational videos. And so we had all these things. And I got to do Spanish videos. I got to do a nonviolent communication video. A couple of them got lost in transit, but my Spanish videos were played all across the state. So I did this little basic educational class, and it was really meaningful to be able to do something where I feel like I'm still teaching or I'm still sharing or I'm still contributing. And that was only once that we did that, and we had made plans to do more, and it kind of fell apart. But so I was still able to work, and I was still able to teach in some form or fashion. But yeah, and then all of a sudden we had a COVID outbreak and nothing happened. We were just locked in the cell. So a day was sitting in the cell, reading and watching TV and writing letters and meditating all day long. And so it wasn't really an exciting adventure, but it was still much better than when I got shipped to Coffeewood. So in the middle of the pandemic, Buckingham had finally decided they were going to get in line with fire code that they had been in violation of for years and years and years. I guess because of ventilation system, because of COVID, they were coming to look at what was going on with ventilation system and realized, like, hey, none of this is in code. So they did an emergency transfer of 64 of us. So they had to clear out an entire pod so they could go in and fix all the vents. So 64 of us, and I wasn't even on the list. That's the worst part. Somebody had a medical emergency, was on the list, and so they kind of picked a name out of the hat, and I was one of those names. So rather than being in the honor pod where I had been, where it was amazing, I had a single cell, it was wonderful, I was shipped to a dormitory. So that was a very unusual day in prison, you know, getting on a bus, being loaded up in full shackles, driving down the road, and just being in awe of the colors and the sights and the sounds and all the things that I hadn't been around, because I was in Buckingham for 13 years without leaving once. Like that couple acre camp, I never left. I didn't go anywhere, I didn't see anything, I didn't go transport, so it was the first time I was on the road in 13 years, and that was just insane. But then when I got to Coffeewood, I was like, well, maybe this will be something positive. No, it was like being back in the jail. It was a big room, and we were all locked in, and that was it. There was no going anywhere, there was no doing anything, we were locked in a big room, and good luck to you. And so the worst thing is, like, during count time, you can't even use the phones. Like, you're in the same room as the phones, but they have to wait until count clears, so you're, like, sitting at the line waiting to go get on the phone, and then you gotta, it's just insane. So an average day at Coffeewood was a lot harder, you know? It was trying to be able to sleep while everybody's making noise and making drunken ruckus and fighting and doing whatever. It was just dealing with the insanity in a different kind of way. And I did build a routine where I would get up really early and I would meditate in the morning. I would do some writing and reading in the morning. And eventually I got to where I was calling Courtney every morning. And then during the day I would work out. I would do my reading. I would kind of connect with people. And then I had a real blessing. I managed to get the medical job. So that allowed me to get out morning and afternoon to go to medical, which was freaking wonderful. Because I could get out of that one room that everybody was stuck in, and I could go over to medical, and I could work, and I could sterilize. And I mean, some of it was really not the best work. Some of it was literally like cleaning up vomit of guys that had overdosed, or cleaning up, you know, just not pleasant things, but it got me out of the pod. And so I had some variety to my day, and I had some variety to my environment, and that was so big, because one of the hardest things is feeling stuck in one place, not able to go anywhere, and not able to do anything. And yeah, any kind of variety is welcome. So what was an average day like in prison? Well, it depended on the day and it depended on the prison.